Hello, I'm John Hemingway. Welcome back to Shropshire. Now we are getting towards summer, and with summer sometimes comes sunshine, and with that come the fair weather dog walkers, which unfortunately pose a slightly increased risk of dog attacks on livestock, something that unfortunately is still not uncommon for us to get called to. Now, this is an emotive subject and people understandably get very upset about it. It drives me up the wall. One, that people are still irresponsible enough to have their animals off the lead around other people's livestock. And secondly, that in so many cases, the dog owner disappears off and doesn't have the common decency to own up and take responsibility for that criminal damage that's happened. Now, I don't want this video to be too depressing, and I realise it is a bit of a depressing topic, but we'll talk about a few things you can do, what you can't do, and, excitingly, one or two things you might be able to do over the next couple of years. So the maximum fine that the owner of a dog that has been worrying livestock can face is £1,000, which is nowhere near enough when you consider that the estimated cost to the sheep industry per year is £2.5 million. The owner of a dog that's been worrying livestock is also liable for the losses that it caused, but you as a farmer will have to quantify what those losses are, and that's easy to do if you've had animals that are killed. But if the dog worrying has resulted in a bunch of ewes having a percentage that are bought, well, it's far more difficult to definitively prove that that was because of dog worrying that happened a few days ago rather than some other cause. So what can you do? Well, it seems stupid to say you can put up signs where footpaths come into your field, but I see no harm in doing that, and I don't see why you should mince your words on them. Putting up a sign that says dogs on leads around livestock is one thing, but there is no harm in putting the maximum fine on there. I also don't think that the public probably have any concept of what a ewe costs, or a lamb, or the potential economic significance of a dog attack on sheep. Get that information up there, make them aware of what is at stake if their dog goes and chases the sheep. All you need to do is convince them to put it back on the lead. Now, you could also put up cameras, and it seems a bit extreme, and you'd probably have to put signs up telling people on the footpath that CCTV is in operation, but there are now a load of home security cameras that will operate off a little solar panel, and if you've got a hot spot for dog worrying with a busy footpath where you've had multiple issues in the past, I see no reason why you couldn't look into that being an option. Now, of course, if you have a bad dog attack, you'd be inclined to call the police, but with the best will in the world, you're unlikely to be at the top of their list of things to do unless it's a very quiet day for them. They're always going to prioritise people who are in danger over sheep, and that's the way that it should be. However, if you suspect that you know the dog that's caused the damage and you know where it lives, they are able to get a warrant to go and speak to that owner in their home and examine the suspect dog. Now, of course, everybody knows that if a dog's worrying your sheep, you can go out there and shoot it. That is true, but it comes with a host of caveats. If you go out and shoot a dog that's worrying your livestock, it has to fulfill a load of criteria. It has to be the absolute last resort. There has to be no way of containing that animal. The dog has to be actively going at the sheep. You can't shoot it while it's running away. If the owner is anywhere near trying to get the dog back, then it's absolutely out. And of course, if you're using a rifle, a firearm, then you have to make sure that you meet all the conditions of your certificate. Do you have an open condition that means you can actually use it, especially if it's rented land? Are you too close to a highway? Then if you do shoot a dog, you have to report it to the police yourself within 48 hours, and you will be asked to justify why you did it and why there was no other alternative. If you do happen to be there at the scene at the time, of course you're going to want to get over there, make sure your sheep are okay, separate them from the dog. But I would urge you, get your phone out, film everything that you can. And if you've got somebody with you, get them to do it for you, because you need evidence to follow these cases up. Now, speaking of evidence, there is a new technology that is coming down the line. It's been developed by John Moores University, and this is part of the Canine DNA Recovery Project. This is a project where police are issuing kits to farms that contain DNA sampling materials. So they can take swabs from the wounds of sheep that have been in dog attacks, look at the dog DNA, and then sample a suspect animal to see if there's a match, and following that, get a prosecution. This project is still in the research phase, and these kits were issued to farmers and vets last summer. This isn't happening nationwide, it's been happening in certain counties. I'll put a list up on the screen. A stumbling block for this at the moment is that owners still have the right to refuse their dog being DNA sampled. However, there is legislation in the pipeline now that when it's passed will mean that owners have to allow the vet or the police to DNA sample their dog if it's suspected of having been involved in a livestock attack. So that's where we are at the moment. It's a depressing topic. You as the farmer, when you're the victim of a livestock attack, are definitely disadvantaged by the law at the moment. You're not necessarily a police priority, and it's very difficult to get the evidence that you need to pursue a prosecution. However, do what you can, put that signage there, use cameras if you need to, and we do have this DNA technology coming down the line that might mean that in the next few years we're in a much stronger position to be able to get a prosecution on some of these livestock attacks, and with a bit of publicity that could act as a deterrent to the general public and just make them think twice before they enter that field without their dog on a lead. I'll be along with another video very soon, and I do hope to see you there. Bye.